Let's check in right now with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He is in Denver, also expecting blizzard conditions. And Mike, what a difference. Saw you this morning, and you are absolutely soaked. Amazing to see how this storm has evolved. What strikes you with what you've seen after your decades of experience covering big storms like this?
Well, what really stands out is that Denver International, about a half an hour ago, peaked at an 80-mile-an-hour wind gust. That's extreme when you're talking about a gradient wind, not a thunderstorm, and that's the strongest wind gust recorded at DIA. Now, remember, that's the newer airport that opened 23 years ago, so it's a very short period of record. Nonetheless, that's a very extreme number. We'll have to check to see what Stapleton did in the many years, and earlier the records were kept downtown. But you can see what's going on out here. We're not far from DIA. Winds gusting right now over 60 miles an hour, blowing snow, drifting snow. We probably have about 2 inches on the ground. The roads are getting icy now because the earlier rain and slush and slop has frozen up. Our temperature is now down to 28 degrees, so it's now down 4 degrees below freezing. This morning it was raining, and we started out our coverage this morning, and the temperature was 38 degrees. So we dropped 10 degrees. The visibility is not very much, about a quarter mile at the airport with these winds. They've already canceled nearly 1,300 flights at Denver International, but there's no ground stop. They've canceled so many flights. In fact, about 70% of all air traffic in and out of DIA is canceled today. But really, that 80-mile-an-hour wind gust, just unbelievable. I just can't, and I didn't feel it myself. I was inside, and we're not right at the airport, but we've had gusts here consistently 60 to 70 miles an hour. It's shaking the vehicles. It's shaking I don't know if you can see, but it's shaking the street lights here and also the automatic signals, the lights here, the traffic lights. So everything, there's a fair amount of traffic out here. I'm kind of surprised how much traffic's out here. And we did just hear that there was an employee bus going from DIA to the employee parking lot. It skidded off the road. Everybody's okay, and they've gotten another employee bus to get those employees to their cars so they can get home safely. Spinouts on Pena Boulevard. As Chris mentioned, 25 is shut down. Also, I-76 is shut down from Brighton, that's just north of Denver, all the way to the Nebraska line. So again, the best bet is just to sit tight. The snow here is going to wind down around dinner time, and then the wind will die down overnight. It's still going to be breezy in the morning for the rush hour, but boy, we're not going to have gusts over 70 or even 80 miles an hour. Gusts tomorrow morning for the rush hour, more like 30, maybe 35 miles an hour. So Chris, what a wild afternoon out here. You know, there's not many tropical systems I've covered where we've had 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts at the location.
It is phenomenal, Mike. And speaking of your location where you are right now, I know television has a hard time sometimes of giving us the whole depth, the realistic perception of the depth. It looks like you're really close to the traffic. Do you feel safe from where you are as the cars are going by in this nasty weather?
Yeah, it looks closer than it actually is. I'm probably about 10 to 15 feet from the roadway, and cars aren't moving that fast. I don't know where the heck we're going. I can tell you at the hotels, this is a big hotel area that was built after Denver International was built in the mid-90s. We're about, 3, maybe 4 miles from the airport terminal. So a lot of folks here are just stuck here. We talked to one family, and they're rebooked. This is Wednesday. They're rebooked to get out on Sunday. I would suggest to think out of the box and drive to another airport, maybe down to Albuquerque tomorrow or Friday. But a lot of folks here are stranded because of all the airport cancellations, and the hotels are going to be booked solid tonight. But once again, just a wild afternoon here in the Front Range. By the way, March and April are the snowiest months in Denver, so this is not that unusual to get snow in March and April, but as you can imagine, this kind of wind is rare. It is rare with this kind of gradient wind, this kind of plain storm. As it heads away into Iowa tonight, we'll get out of the gradient, and again, by tomorrow morning, the winds will be much, much more tolerable.
All right, meteorologist Mike Seidel there in that nasty weather. Here's another.
Good afternoon from Denver. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, hanging on here in a blizzard. We've gusted to 80 miles an hour at nearby Denver International Airport. 1,300 flights canceled. Hundreds of folks are stuck and may not be able to get out till the weekend. Look at the snow, the horizontal snow here, the wind whipping the traffic lights. We're still gusting 60 to 65 miles an hour, and these winds are going to howl right into this evening before they start to die down later this evening and overnight. Hard to tell how much snow we've had, at least 2 if not 3 inches. It's not about the snow with this storm. We're looking for 5 to 8 generally in Metro Denver. Not huge amounts by Denver standards in March and April, which are the snowiest months of the year, but by and large, it is the wind, and the winds, as I mentioned, gusting to 80, but all across the plains, we've got shutdowns on I-70, I-25 from here all the way to Cheyenne, I-80 in Nebraska, and we'll keep an eye, too, on I-90, the Rapid City area. We'll check in with Chris Bruin from Rapid City and Dave Malkoff in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, coming up later this afternoon. They're in the thick of it, too. But just howling winds, blowing snow. You can hear the wind roaring through the trees and the buildings, even the traffic light, not only traffic lights, but the street lights are wobbling back and forth with these winds. I have never been in winds this strong in a snowstorm. I've been in 50, even 55, maybe 60, but not 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts. This is a heck of a storm. We've already had Pueblo, Colorado set their lowest atmospheric pressure this morning, down around 975 millibars. So the storm is bombing out. It's deepening as it heads out of Colorado into Kansas and Iowa tonight. As it pulls away, the snow here will actually end around dinner time, and then it's just what's left over, the wind blowing what's on the ground. So while the blowing snow, the blizzard warning right now continues until midnight in the Denver area. So a wild day. What a change. This time yesterday, 60 degrees, but that's pretty typical in the Front Range this time of the year. Let's go back to Atlanta and check in with Jackie Jarris. Jackie?
All right, thanks so much, Mike. So just south of you in Denver, about half.
Good afternoon from Denver. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel. This is what a blizzard looks like, and it'll bop you around pretty good out here. We've gusted at nearby DIA, Denver International, to 80 miles an hour. We're not talking thunderstorm. We're talking gradient wind around this bomb that's heading through the Central Plains right now. The wind coming right at me from the north-northwest, still sustained in the 40s and still gusting between 60 and 70 miles an hour. This is about as bad as I've ever been in, weather I've ever been in winter-wise in the 27 years at the Weather Channel. I've seen a little bit lower visibility in Duluth one time, but boy, look at the visibility, about a block, maybe a half a block, that's it. The airport reporting officially quarter mile. Ceiling is down to about 200 feet at best, and because of that, they've already canceled 73% of all flights in and out of DIA. So by and large, that's 3/4 of all the flights. A lot of folks are stuck here in this area with all the hotels about 3 or 4 miles from the airport. Some of them are telling us they're rebooked on Sunday. This is, what is this, Wednesday. Temperature continues to fall. We're down in the upper 20s. We started this morning, if you're watching this morning on AMHQ, it was raining in 38, and the winds were about 15, 18 miles an hour. But this storm bombed out, and boy, we're now on the northwest side of it, and the wind is just unrelenting, just howling out here. We don't have a lot of snow accumulation. I'm thinking maybe we've had 2 or 3 inches. It's hard to measure, but what has happened is the moisture from this morning, the rain, followed by the wet snow, has now frozen. So we've got about an inch of what I like to call plastic in these parking lots. There is still traffic on the roadways. I don't know why anybody's really out in this, but except for those of us who are meteorologists. But it is just a wild day. There's another gust that has to be over 50 miles an hour. This is a punishing wind. Again, the temperature not bitterly cold, but the wind chill now in the high single numbers. When you have winds 40 to 50 miles an hour, that'll take a temperature of 27 to 28, and the wind chill factors down to about 8 or 9 degrees. And that, I think that's the first time I've ever gone to the wind chill calculator and put in a sustained wind speed of over 40 miles an hour. I put in 52 earlier. I'm thinking like, whoa, that's a lot of wind out here. So what's the timetable here? The snow is going to wind down around dinner time, so we'll be done with the snow. We're not going to be done with the wind. That's going to take a little bit longer to relax as the low pulls away tonight through Iowa and then heads northeast. And then later tonight, the winds will back off. Tomorrow morning, rush hour, we're thinking winds 15 to 20, still some gusts to 30 miles an hour, and we'll still have some blowing snow, and certainly in the wide open areas, especially on Pena Boulevard, which is the main thoroughfare that gets you to the airport from Denver and from I-70. We've already had some issues out there with spinouts. See how the wind will just push you? It just hits you from the side and pushes you from left to right here. And back to the airport. Hopefully, they should be able to get the runways back open. And the real issue today, obviously, is the wind for aircraft. And the wind will be, as I mentioned, subsiding overnight. And by tomorrow afternoon, we're looking at winds about 10 to 15 miles an hour. So a real quick turnaround tomorrow as the day wears on. We're going to hang out here in Denver for the afternoon here, keep you updated on the situation, and give you these wild visuals from just outside of the airport. Jackie? Chris?
Hey, Mike, where you are right now, you said you're kind of near the airport, right? And if you've ever driven, for our viewers who have not driven from Denver to the airport, it's a bit of a ways, and you really feel like you're getting out into the plains on your way to DIA. Have you seen anybody else that's hanging out with you or around you, driving around? What's the activity been like, aside from all the wind and the snow?
Well, as you saw earlier, there's a fair amount of traffic out here on Tower Road, which is the main road in this complex they built just to the west of DIA. I guess about 15 years ago they started building it, because when the airport opened, you had to go all the way back to Stapleton, the old airport, to get a hotel, or back to I-70 in Aurora. So they built all these hotels out here. So these are relatively new, and so it's mostly people that are, overnighting. There's not a whole lot of very little residential out here. In fact, I don't think there's any at all at this point. But we're a good 15 miles from I-70 and then downtown Denver. So we're out in the plains. I always joke that when you drive out to DIA, you're driving halfway to Goodland, Kansas. Boy, that wind, holy smokes, that is really punishing. I'm trying to run back every snowstorm I've been in with a lot of wind. And I can think of maybe the Duluth blizzard. That was on February 29th, 2012. And I mean, this is right up there with that as far as the wind. The winds are stronger here. That, though, had heavier snowfall, and the visibility was about 100 feet. So, Chris, to answer your question, there are still folks out on the highway here near the airport.
All right, Mike, we'll check back with you in a little bit. Also, I want to get your thoughts a little bit later. Have you
back down to along 25 to Denver, where I would not be able to go because that's shut down, trying to travel there to our good buddy Mike Seidel hanging out in Denver. And Mike, you've been out there. You were out there earlier. Talk about how it's changed from earlier this morning you were out to where it is now.
You know, but if you think about it, Alex, if you could get here, you'd have a heck of a tailwind coming down 25, northwest. Last check, 47, 48, gusting still 62 miles an hour. So we backed off a little bit from that earlier peak gust of 80. We had several gusts earlier, too, to 75 miles an hour. Remember, these are hurricane-force wind gusts, and you don't often see that kind of wind unless you have a thunderstorm. And we had that this morning with the squall line in Dallas, where they gusted to 78. You get a sense it's like a big snow globe out here. And Alex is right. What's the takeaway from the storm? Yeah, it's snowing in March in Denver, but March and April are the two snowiest months of the year in the Front Range. But the takeaway is the wind. I mean, this is really incredible. Look, I can hardly see the hotel over there. That's about a block, not even a block away. A couple of cars coming by. Still a fair amount of traffic on Tower Road. That's the main road out here. We're in this section, if you're familiar with Denver International Airport, you leave the airport and about 3 or 4 miles from the terminal, there's a big complex of hotels they built out here after the airport was open, so you don't have to go all the way back to 70 and the closer in metro hotels. So there's a lot of people out here that are just sitting in the hotel lobbies and sitting at the bars because they can't get anywhere. Some of these folks are going to be here for a couple of days, if not into Saturday and Sunday, because all these flights that were canceled today, 73% of all flights, and probably just about everything else, because you just can't get in with this kind of wind out on those runways because the airport's wide open, much like where I'm standing. So a lot of folks are going to be stuck here. And it's not so much the snow amounts and this wind, but the wind is the issue. And the wind's going to die down after midnight tonight. But Alex, your wind's going to last a little bit longer up in Cheyenne. In fact, your blizzard warning, last time I checked, ours goes till midnight. Yours goes through the day tomorrow on Thursday.
Yeah, you said it, Mike. Even once we stop the snow.
So meteorologist Mike Seidel, about 100 miles south of where Alex is in Denver, Colorado. And Mike, man, things getting worse there, huh?
What I think is going on is that the temperature is dropping. It's gone down to 27, and the snow is becoming drier and fluffier. So these winds, which have gusted 60, 70, even 80 miles an hour, are having a real good time playing with this powder, and it's being picked up and blown around. So as a result, the visibility, I can't even see that hotel now. That's a half a block away. I can barely see the markings on that. And I keep referring to the Duluth blizzard back in February of 2012 on the 29th. And how low the visibility was. I was right on the lakefront, and now that visibility is being matched here because of the snow and the blowing snow. Boy, this is just basically a whiteout here in Denver. And again, we're out by the airport where basically nothing's going in and out today. They've canceled over 1,300 flights, about 3/4 of the entire schedule. And I don't see how much is going to get in and out of here the rest of this afternoon or this evening. Now, the snow is going to wind down around dinner time. The winds will be slower to subside as the low pulls away, but a much better day tomorrow. Through the day, the winds will continue to back off. Wow. Chris, this is going to be one I'll remember until I'm, off the streets and out in front of the camera. This is a really blatant plains blizzard. You see these in old films, and you see them in video, but this is the worst I've ever seen, I think, in my career as far as the combination of wind and snow and visibility of anything I've covered in the past 27 years. Because I've never been in a winter storm with winds that have gusted over 60, let alone today. We gusted a little before noon to 80 miles an hour. And we'll keep hanging out here and show you these pictures right on through this afternoon. Chris, back to you.
Yeah, hey, Mike, as we're watching you, when we talk to you again, I want to ask you what your thoughts are. We're still in the middle of this storm. Cheyenne, Wyoming, Denver, Colorado, Colorado Springs have all already met blizzard criteria, and this storm is far from over. I want to get Mike's thoughts on that.
Good afternoon from Denver. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel, and I can say, without a doubt, all my years out in these storms, this is as bad as I've seen during the winter. We've had 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts, or visibility is down next to zero, as you can see behind me, and we've got snow and blowing snow. We're just outside of Denver International Airport, and this is Tower Road. There's still a little bit of traffic. Hard to see the vehicles, but the traffic has definitely backed off in the past hour. I think people are finally deciding to stay home and stay off the roads. Now, remember, this is more of a hotel complex area near the airport. As far as I know, there's no residential area anywhere near here. So these are basically, I guess, people that work at the hotels, the restaurants, and a lot of travelers that are stuck here because effectively nothing is going in and out of the airport, which is just down the road. These winds have gusted 80 miles an hour. We're still gusting in the 60s. Keep in mind, 75 to 80, that's hurricane force. You don't often see winds like that unless you're dealing with a tropical system or severe weather, like that derecho this morning that slammed into Dallas. With the wind, you can hear it coming right through the trees, and the howl down the roadway through these trees. The traffic lights, look how the traffic lights are bobbing in the wind, much like you see during a tropical storm. Now, remember, the winds have been sustained well over tropical storm force now for several hours, which is 39 miles an hour. In fact, one of the obs was 52 gusts to 75. That's a pretty good, that's about a mid-range tropical storm. That's pretty healthy. But it is winter after all. The last few days of winter here in the Front Range, they get most of their snowiest months by far are March and April. So it's not unusual to get snow in Denver in March. What is unusual, pretty much anywhere in the U.S., is to get winds like this with snow. Unless you're on a mountaintop, say in the Cascades or the Rockies or Mount Washington. But down here, where we live and breathe, here in the Mile High City, they've never had winds this strong at DIA. Now, the disclaimer on that is that airport just opened back in 1996. So we've only got a period of record of 23 years. But without a doubt, that's a very strong wind gust. The snow is going to back off as we get into dinner time, but the wind's going to stay up through this evening and then slowly ramp down overnight. When you head out tomorrow morning, if school's open, if you're heading into work, you'll notice a huge decrease in the wind. We'll still be gusting, I think, tomorrow at sunrise and for the rush hour, upwards of around 30 miles an hour. So that's the status here in Denver. More of the same for about the next 3 or 4 hours before the snow tapers off and we watch the wind back off overnight. But certainly the moniker of this storm, Chris Warren, is the wind, because snowfall totals are going to be 5 to 8 inches. They've had totals here in the springtime well over a foot or a foot and a half.
Mike, of course, we know that the snow drifts with this wind could be a lot higher than that 5 to 8 inches. But Cheyenne, Wyoming, Denver, Colorado, Colorado Springs all have already, at this point in the storm, met blizzard criteria. 35-mile-an-hour winds with visibility down below a quarter of a mile for 3 hours. What are your thoughts on that, knowing that there's still a lot of wind to go, and even after the snow stops, the wind can still be howling? What are your thoughts on that? And in any significance do you think with blizzard conditions being met so early on?
Well, then you're looking at a blizzard condition. You know, you need 3 hours, but we're going to go, what, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 hours. How often do you see that? In fact, many times when we have blizzard warnings out, we verify 2 hours, and then we don't verify the third. So we just miss it. This time we've already verified really in the first 3 hours of the storm, because keep in mind it was raining here until late morning, and then the cold air came in, the wind howled, and it all went over to snow. So what it tells me is that we're in for quite a storm. I know, pointing out the obvious, but the fact that this is going to be a longer setup for what we term blizzard conditions, as you mentioned, those qualities that we need to satisfy a blizzard. So 3 hours already, and we're going to have another, what, 3 or 4, and it's all a function of what happens after the snow ends. How much ground blizzards do we get? Because you can verify a blizzard without snow actually falling. One thing you notice also versus a storm in December or January is that high March sun angle, and I look up, and boy, it's extremely bright out here. You can almost wear sunglasses, but it's a very bright snowstorm. When you're in the dead of winter and you have the low sun angle, it just doesn't get this bright. But you remember, we're just a few days around the corner next week, and we're coming right into the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere.
Mike, 2 questions for you. You can answer one or both. First one, have you ever reported for the entire 3 hours of a blizzard? And second, what's the coldest part of your body right now?
Have I ever reported? Oh, yes, I have reported in a blizzard for 3 or more hours, yes. More than a few times over 27 years. The coldest part of my body would be right here. I'm taking it in the right ear. So right here, this cheek right here, it feels like it's been shot up with Novocaine. So it's kind of numb. I'm not worried about frostbite because I'm going in and out, but right here it's you know, where you can pinch it and you don't feel the pain. Everything else, I'm layered up. 28 degrees, no big deal. But when the wind's hitting you and the wind chill's about 8 or 10, right here, this exposed flesh, I can feel that. Chris?
All right, meteorologist Mike Seidel, certainly in his element for us, and he will be. Meteorologist Mike Seidel. And Mike, of course, been tracking this. And Mike, want to know, the way things have been playing out so far and the reports we're hearing, and Jack, you've been keeping tabs of this. I'm curious if, Mike, anything stands out to you? Any surprises with this storm yet?
Not really. I am surprised we gusted to 80. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised anymore, considering what's going on in the world, what you read and hear every day and what you see. But I thought we would gust to 70-ish, but we gusted to 80 here. And then you just mentioned a 96-mile-an-hour gust. I saw a 92-mile-an-hour gust from a cooperative observer. I mean, think about that, 96-mile-an-hour winds. Now, a Category 2 hurricane has sustained winds of 96, but we're talking wind gust, obviously. But still, very impressive. And we're talking about a non-tropical system. And remember, with tropical systems, the winds are very close in. with a gradient wind with a low pressure like this, a synoptic-scale cyclone, mid-latitude cyclone as we call them, the pressure field is spread out and the winds are spread out. So the winds, as we mentioned this morning, it was over 70 million of you were in some kind of wind alert, either an advisory or a high wind warning or high wind watch or the blizzard warning like we have here at least till midnight tonight. So we've gusted 80. The airport effectively, nothing's going in and out of there. Last check, they had canceled about 75% of all flights. Still some travel out here. We've got the Hamilton Linen and Uniform Company delivering linen since 1911, and they're delivering linen today here at these hotels. Again, we're in this big complex of hotels just several miles down the road, just off to the west of Denver International Airport. But the wind and the snow continues. The snow will back off by around dinner time. Now, the roads are another story. Let's take you to I-25. That's the main north-south route from Albuquerque to Denver, up to Cheyenne. And look at this huge pileup. This is why the interstate is closed between here and Fort Collins and up to Cheyenne. Also, 76 is closed all the way from Denver to the Nebraska line. Forget about I-80 in Nebraska, western Nebraska. We're going to go to Dave Malkoff in Scottsbluff coming up in about a half an hour. So a lot of bad travel roadways today. Interstates with the snow and the wind, the plows just shouldn't even be out on the roadway. Tomorrow the wind will back off, the plows can get back out there, and eventually some sunshine. If not tomorrow, then on Friday. So the roads, if you've got any weekend travel through this part of the world, the roads will be fine by the weekend, but certainly not very good tomorrow morning. We'll have continuing coverage from the Plains blizzard and more on that potential tornado impact later today in the south.
In the Denver area is meteorologist Mike Seidel. Mike, this wind has been relentless. Confirmed blizzard now, Cheyenne, Colorado Springs, and Denver, Colorado, where you are there. Not too far away from the airport, which the runways are closed, but the airport itself, the terminal's still open. How are you doing, Mike?
Doing okay. The wind's still howling out here. We're still gusting over 60 miles an hour. The wind has been unrelenting now for about 4 hours. This morning it was running about 18 to 20 miles an hour. It was raining when we started on the air at 5 a.m. local time. But then it all changed very quickly as the storm bombed out in southeast Colorado. The wind picked up, the cold air drained down the Front Range, down 25, and the rain went to snow. It's been heavy at times. We're getting, obviously, a lot of blowing snow. The temperature now 27 degrees. The amazing numbers, wind speed-wise, Denver International, 80 miles an hour. That's the highest wind clocked on record there. Now, keep in mind, it's a short POR, or period of record. The airport opened in 1996, but even with that said, think about how often the wind blows more than 50 miles an hour outside of a thunderstorm or a tropical system. It doesn't happen very often. I've been in a lot of winter storms, and it's rare that you have wind gusts over 50 or 55 miles an hour. I can probably count on two hands over 27 years that the winds have gusted that high. So extreme winds, we just got confirmed from the tower at the airport in Colorado Springs, the wind gust there, 96 miles an hour. You got to be kidding me. 96 mile an hour wind gust. That means even wind less than that, 70 mile an hour wind gust. We're going to have some structural damage, and we're going to have power outages that are already mounting across here in the Front Range. Travel, forget about it. As Chris mentioned, the runways are closed at DIA. The airport is open. The terminals and concourses are open, and about 75% of flights have been canceled. A couple of gentlemen hit me up on my Twitter feed. Well, why not 100%? Well, remember that flights went out this morning. There were a fair amount of flights that went out this morning early. In fact, flights were going out until about 10:30, 11 o'clock, because that's when the weather really went downhill late morning. We had rain earlier and temperatures above freezing. So that's why it's not 100% and it's around 75%. Effectively, nothing is going to go in and out of DIA now and probably for the rest of the night. Tomorrow's a whole different story. Lighter winds as the day wears on. In the morning, still gusty. The snow snow will be over with. We may have still some blowing snow, especially out there and even maybe in these areas that are wide open. But by tomorrow afternoon, we're talking winds down around 10 to 15 miles an hour as the storm pulls away. As it does so, it's also going to weaken. Still some traffic out here on Tower Road. This area where I'm standing is basically restaurants, businesses, and hotels. There are some residential areas not far from here, but primarily everything around here is dealing with the airport and people trying to get in and out of DIA. And there are a lot of people extending their stays in these hotels because they can't get a flight. Some people are telling us they're rebooked on Sunday. That's a long way away. I think I would think out of the box and maybe drive to another airport. But that's just me, just a suggestion. So, Chris and Jackie, the wind continues to howl here out well east of downtown Denver, out here in the plains, and it's going to do this through the evening hours. The snow, though, will begin to wind down and end around dinner time this evening. We're looking for a storm total of 5 to 8 inches. Again, the thing you're going to remember about this storm is not the snow totals, but the ferocity of the wind from this low.
And, Mike, we saw with Alex Wallace and Shannon a little bit earlier, he's seeing some snow drifts. Is the snow that you're seeing accumulate, is it pretty uniform, or are you starting to see some little drifts here and there?
We're seeing some drifts around some of the trees. Looks like about 1.5 to 2 feet. I don't see anything tremendous. Now, remember out on Pena Boulevard, which is the road from the interstate to the airport, they've got these huge snow fences because that road is so susceptible to drifting because you're driving basically west-east or east-west and the wind's north-northwest, so it's blowing almost perpendicular to the roadway. So they've got those out there. But by and large, we're not seeing huge drifts right now. And one thing that's going to save us from getting some of the drifts you've seen in the past 6, 7, 8 feet is that we're not going to get in this area 1.5 or 2 feet of snow. You got 5 to 8 inches. You can only get drifts so high. I don't know. I don't think there's an equation, Chris, but just you think about common sense. Yeah. 6 inches of snow is going to get you what? Maybe a 3-foot drift somewhere. Maybe.
It is interesting to see how it all plays out. Also here on the Weather Channel.
It's Denver, where they have been in it all day. It is brutal there, Mike, and I've been watching your shots. It is unreal. How much snow have you guys seen? And try to even measure what you get for snow. You know, snow's not really the big issue there. It's really the winds. But have you ever been in something like this?
I have never been in a winter storm with this kind of wind. We've gusted to 80 at Denver International, a few miles down the road. Colorado Springs has gusted, Chris, to 96 miles an hour. That's down south on 25, and I can't even imagine trying to even attempt going over the Palmer Divide. But as far as measuring the snow, tough job out here. You know, you've got drifts here on the sidewalk. We have like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. You get other areas, there's more snow. So it's blowing and drifting. I would have to estimate we've had at least 4 inches of snow. And I just inhaled some, because we've had heavy snow for about 4 hours. We verified a blizzard here. You can see how it's blowing sideways. Winds still gusting over 60 miles an hour. The runways at the airport are closed for now. Effectively, nothing's going in and out of the airport, although the concourses are open. The terminal is open. The terminals are open. And we've got some gentlemen. How's the blizzard, sir? How you doing?
Good.
Good.
I'm hungry.
He's hungry. Somebody walking by says he's hungry. Yes. Take a number. So back to what I was talking about. So the airport is open, but just nothing's going in and out of there. Some folks have been rebooked as late as Saturday and Sunday because you've got hundreds of people that got canceled today. We're talking over 1,300 flights. You figure how many people are on each plane. The wind is unrelenting. It's sustained right now 45 to 50 miles an hour. We've got a Starbucks over here. I can see it. I don't know if you can see it. We've got another hotel over here about a half a block away. One thing I've noticed is it's a little darker now. Earlier it was so bright I could have put on some sunglasses, but it's gotten a little darker. I think that the snow is coming down harder now, if you can believe that. But the wind, this is what you're going to remember if you're out here about this storm, is how strong these winds are. Sure, Denver gets snow in March. In fact, March and April are their snowiest months of the entire year. That's right, in the Front Range. But if you look back 2 years ago, they almost had the least snowiest winter on record. They only had 21.8 inches. Last year, less than 26 inches. Their average is up around 5 feet. So they've been in a big snow drought. And going into this storm, they were running a deficit. They were running at about 34 inches. So they're playing catch up with the snowfall, but not unusual to get snowfall in the Front Range. In fact, they've had snow into May here in Denver. But Chris Bruin, you're right. The wind is what is really going to make the storm here in Denver, and more than likely in Rapid City, although you may get more snow up there, certainly in the Black Hills and off to the east of the Black Hills. Chris?
Yeah, Mike, I'm not sure how well you can hear me because even just listening to you, it kind of goes in and out. You mentioned at Starbucks. You know, here around Rapid City, there are so many things that are closed. Have you noticed that in Denver? Are places like businesses and things that you would think would be open on a Wednesday afternoon, have you noticed any of those places closed?
Yeah, a lot of things are closed in town. Now, remember, we're out by the airport. The restaurant where we are is open. The restaurants are open. There aren't that many restaurants here. I don't know if the Starbucks is open. There's some cars over there. I haven't had time to venture across the street for some hot chocolate. But by and large, schools were closed. They were closed at the get-go. Late yesterday, and even last night when I went to bed, there was already over 500 flights canceled out at the airport. So this was not a surprise. This was well forecasted, and we knew this was coming. I don't know if anybody expected a wind gust, Chris, to almost 100 miles an hour, but nonetheless, we had expected a blizzard out here 4, 5, 6 days ago. We were watching and tracking this in the long range.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that 7 states are under blizzard warnings at this hour. So that's nearly 5 million folks. That's a lot. Guys, a blizzard it's dangerous.
Our own Mike Seidel, he is live in Denver, Colorado right now. And Mike, you've just been getting hammered the last couple of hours with incredible winds and that snow coming down. I mean, visibility has been so rough. We haven't had a clear view of you, I think, in a couple hours already.
Well, you know, some would say that's a good thing, but that's a whole different story for a different day. We are out here in the blizzard. The wind has been unrelenting, coming right out of the north-northwest. I have nothing stopping this wind from coming across the plains. Visibility is up a little bit. Maybe about a block and a half, but it's just a wild day out here. We've already commented on what this storm is going to be known for, the wind, not so much the snowfall totals. We're looking at 5 to 8 inches, but the wind gust at DIA, just down the road, 80 miles an hour. Colorado Springs now has updated the tower, 97 miles an hour. That's crazy wind. That's even impressive for a tropical storm or even a hurricane, and that'll do some damage. And right now, Xcel Energy reporting about 135,000 customers out. That's about 10% of their power base, and that's the main power company being impacted. That's in the state of Colorado. Speaking of Denver International, to get there, you got to drive Pena Boulevard. That takes you from the suburbs, from Aurora and I-70 right out to the airport, and you can see the traffic. Now, they've got huge snow fences, permanent, giant metal snow fences, because the road goes basically east-west, and typically when you have a snowstorm, the wind's going to be running from some kind of a northerly component, so basically perpendicular to that roadway. So very susceptible to blowing and drifting. And I remember a storm not many years ago where the airport was open, but employees couldn't get in because Pena Boulevard was drifted closed. Today, they're having problems, as you can see there. Also, the wind bouncing around power lines. I just mentioned the power outages here in Colorado, and they'll be ramping up in other states, including parts of the Dakotas, Nebraska, and even western Kansas. We had a heavy wet snow early on, but now the temperature is falling down into the mid-20s, so it's a powdery snow, which is good. It doesn't stick to anything, but it blows around a lot easier. So I think that's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Over the past hour and a half to 2 hours, the visibility has gone down, not necessarily because the snow is coming down harder, but because the wind can pick it up easier. It's not that gloppy stuff that we had early on. Remember, this morning it was rain and in the 30s until late morning, Chris, and that's why flights did get out this morning, but basically everything else has been scrubbed for today. I did check ahead tomorrow, and very few cancellations tomorrow. I believe departures in Denver about 40 40 flights canceled tomorrow, and I'm guessing those are the first flights out in the morning that the planes can't get in because of this weather today.
Mike, what would you think? You've done a lot of traveling. Where would you go if you needed to get out of town real soon once the weather stopped?
Well, I know it's a long drive, but, you know, we're talking to people that are rebooked on Sunday. That's 4 days from now. I would say tomorrow or even Friday, maybe try Albuquerque, down 25. You're going to have to go south or southeast. And, you know, it's a long way to Oklahoma City or Amarillo, but straight down 25 to Albuquerque. That's just a suggestion. You know, there's other options, but that's what I would be thinking about if I was being told I was going to be have to sit here till Sunday. There are other ways. And let me tell you this, flights get full, and they stay sold out, but then people decide to drive or they find other ways, and eventually some seats will pop open, and I'm betting those folks may not be stuck here till Sunday. Let's hope not. That's a long time to be stuck somewhere when you're probably trying to get somewhere for spring break and have some fun.
And meteorologist Mike Seidel, we're going to check back with you, too. It looks like the winds have been doing some interesting things. I want to ask you about that coming up a little bit later, but look at this storm.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Denver. I am meteorologist Mike Seidel. The blizzard rages on in the plains. Here in the Front Range, we've had wind gusts to 97 miles an hour. 97 from a winter storm, not a tropical system, not a derecho, not a thunderstorm. Yes, indeed. It's been quite an afternoon here. It's going to continue through this evening. Now, the snow will back off here in Denver around dinner time. It's still snowing pretty good. At the airport, visibility now down to 1/8 of a mile. 1/8 of a mile. Was that about 3 football fields? Effectively nothing going in and out of Denver International. They ended up canceling over 1,300 flights today. Flights didn't get out this morning because this morning until about 10, 11 o'clock, it was just rain and some sleet, and temperatures were safely above freezing. Look at the visibility. Look at how the street lights and how the signals, automatic signals, the traffic lights are bopping up and down in the wind. Very typical of when you're covering a tropical storm or hurricane. But I can hardly see the Starbucks, which is just across the street. So that's how bad the visibility is. The snow has become increasingly powdery and fluffy because the temperatures have fallen. Even since we've been out here for 3 hours, they've fallen from 30 down to about 26 or 27. So as a result, it just blows everywhere. So even once the snow ends, we're going to have some blowing and drifting snow through midnight tonight. That's the current end time for the blizzard warning in the Front Range. Areas north and east, up towards Cheyenne, out towards Scottsbluff, Rapid City, those areas. Some of those blizzard warnings go through the entire day on Thursday. But I'm looking down Tower now, and I can only see about 50 yards, maybe 30 yards now, because the wind is picking up the snow and blowing it towards me, just like it is here. It's basically a whiteout for all intents and purposes when you have the visibility down to about 25, 30, 40 yards. And that's why travel is not recommended. By the way, the wind has knocked out power. About 137,000 customers in Colorado, most of those with XL Energy, and that is about 10% of their power base. When you get winds 80, 90 miles an hour, that's going to knock out power. The saving grace now is the snow is powdery. It's not heavy and wet like it was briefly, and so it's not really sticking to the trees and the power lines. It's all about the extreme winds. Look at it, we still have cars out here. Where are these folks going? Where are they going? Maybe they're going to eat somewhere. Let's go up to Scottsbluff, Nebraska. Dave Malkoff out there in the plains. Dave, boy, I don't know how you're going to get out of there. Some of those drifts are going to be mighty big, even taller than you are, Dave.
That's not too hard. Coverage kicks off with meteorologist Mike Seidel. He is in Denver tonight.
All right, Mike, you have been out there for 3 hours. It is tough when you're dealing with this kind of wind.
It is. The saving grace is it's not bitter cold. In fact, the temperatures have been running in the upper 20s. We started off this morning. If you're watching this morning, it was raining in the upper 30s. Now it's dropped down to the upper 20s. The winds, though, have really ramped up. We peaked earlier, late morning, at 80 miles an hour just before lunchtime. Effectively, nothing is going in and out of Denver International Airport. They had flights out this morning, but then the weather went downhill quickly. Down the range, the front range, over on the other side of the Palmer Divide, Colorado Springs, to say the Springs, they've gusted to 97 miles an hour. That's likely the strongest wind gust they've ever recorded at that airport. And just think about that. And we're talking about a winter storm. We're not talking about a tropical system or a severe thunderstorm. Sometimes we'll get winds, straight line winds, 100 miles an hour. Like this morning in Dallas, we had a 78 mile an hour wind gust. So the offshoot of that is the snow is blowing everywhere. The visibility has come up a little bit right now. The intensity has backed off, but look at the everything blowing in the wind. The street lights, the red lights, the green lights, just a big swirl out here. It's like a big snow globe. We're not going to get a whole lot of snow. I mean, we're talking 6-7 inches of snow. What makes this storm really noticeable is the wind. These winds, I've never experienced wind like this strong in a winter storm. Now, the wind is going to continue to blow through this evening and then wind down after midnight, but the snow is going to back off around dinner time. So about another 3 to 4 hours, the snow will back off. But the damage has been done. They've shut down I-70, I-25 from here all the way up to Cheyenne and other interstates 80 in Nebraska. Just about all the roads in the panhandle of Nebraska, as we'll find out from Dave Malkoff. And also I-90 is going to be shut down here shortly in Rapid City and points in the western part of South Dakota. So a wild day out here. The blizzard continues. We will keep you updated. Let's go to Chris Bruin.
Let's take you right into Denver tonight, where they've had wind gusts of 80 miles an hour. Meteorologist Mike Seidel is there.
Mike, you've been out there for hours. We've heard of the wind gusts staying strong and the power outages, unfortunately, going up.
That's true, and we've also talked to a lot of folks that are stranded because of all the flights canceled at Denver International. The runways are closed. We've got Cody Bailey on my left. We've got Austin Mewborn and Logan Shearer on the end. And you guys are stuck here. You were working here in the Denver area, and you were trying to get back to Houston. That was a no-go for obvious reasons.
Yes, sir. They canceled all our flights today, and don't have any flights going back out until Saturday. We actually have a wedding to get to Saturday, so we're going to try to leave here in the morning, try to go down to Amarillo, and get a flight to Houston out of Amarillo.
And then head to Lufkin. And who's getting married?
My little brother.
Your little brother, you got to be there.
He's the best man.
You're the best man?
Yes, sir.
So you're all pumped about that.
Yeah, I'm the best man, and he's a groomsman, so.
And are you part of the wedding party?
No, I'm not part of the wedding party. I'm just stuck here with these guys.
Are you going to the wedding?
No, I'm not going to go to the wedding.
Oh, for God's sakes, invite the poor guy.
He's a work colleague.
Okay, well, there you go. You're all, you're a mechanical engineer.
Yes, sir.
And you are?
I'm a sales manager.
Sales manager and?
Applications engineer.
Oh, wow, we got some smart guys here. Now, how long have you been in Denver on this project?
We got here yesterday.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir.
So just one day?
Yes, sir.
Oh, gosh. And what's the options on flying out of Denver? When can you get out of here?
Saturday afternoon, we can get into back into Houston like 7.
And what time's the wedding?
I can't remember. It's 6, I think.
But it's Saturday.
Yes, sir. Yes,
so
sir.
that's not going to work.
That's not an option.
So driving to Amarillo, that's not too bad. You just go down 25, hit 40.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you've got your flight booked.
Not yet. We're waiting to make sure the roads are good enough to get out of here in the morning.
They should be okay. Once the wind dies down, they'll be able to get the plows out on 25. And once you get farther south, they didn't really get that much snow. So what are the expectations on the drive and the flight tomorrow?
We're going to try to get there as quick as possible. That way we're not the ones that are tardy for the event. So.
Yeah, that's right. Big wedding. Well, congrats to your brother. Congrats to you. We've got Cody, Austin, and Logan. Thanks for joining us here. And good luck with your drive tomorrow. Be careful. And check those highways. 25 southbound right now. Forget about it. But tomorrow should be better.
Can we shout out to my brother for the wedding?
Okay. How about a shout out?
Kaylin and Sarah, good luck and congratulations.
Many happy returns. Congrats to the upcoming nuptials. Mike and Alex, back to you in Atlanta.
They got to make it.
They got to get there.
Yeah, there's a bride right now going, they need to get here now.
They're in a blizzard, of all things, right? Yeah. Hey, did you see